What's up, guys? I'm Steven.
And I'm Kylie. And if you would have told us like 6 or 7 years ago that in a couple years we would be completely out of the 9-to-5 lifestyle and instead managing a growing collection of top performing vacation rental houses, we probably wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, we also wouldn't believe you if you told us that we'd have a YouTube channel either.
No, definitely wouldn't believe you.
We might have believed that we'd have a couple investment properties of our own, but we never set out to manage property for others.
So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, this is totally not applicable to me, I don't want to be a property manager, I just want to have one or two, couple of investment properties of my own, just have an open mind because we were right there where you are.
We're not trying to encourage everyone to be property managers.
We actually did a whole video on why property management sucks, so you can check that one out after this if you want to learn more. But most of the time, we actually do enjoy it and we like working together as well.
Since we didn't set out to be property managers, we had a pretty scrappy start. We knew how to manage our own duplex property.
This duplex property actually where we're filming today.
But we definitely made some mistakes, especially in the first year.
Today we're sharing 4 big mistakes with you, mistakes that we made as new property managers, so that you can hopefully learn from our experiences and not make the same mistakes that we did.
And honestly, one of these mistakes applies to all short-term rental hosts, especially ones who want to scale their portfolio, not just property managers or co-hosts.
So if we could roll back the clock all the way back to 2019, the year we got our first PM client, the first thing that we would do differently is to not ignore the red flags.
Our first client was an absolute nightmare.
Seriously, it was a nightmare. We've thought really hard about how we could best share our experience with this particular client without completely dragging her through the mud, but we realized that we don't have anything positive to say about it. So we are just not going to say anything at all and instead just focus on some of the red flags that we should have noticed but ignored.
Yeah, if we see these things now, we just turn the other direction instead of trying to force a relationship that isn't a good fit.
A few of these red flags are a sense of hesitation or distrust from the client, micromanaging,
also being stingy or not wanting to complete necessary maintenance items on the property. And then there's also some properties that just don't fit with our brand.
A home not aligning with our brand doesn't mean that, it has to be brand new construction or that it has to be perfectly styled. But we do have a sort of basic threshold of amenities that needs to be met.
Yeah, and the background for this basic set of amenities is because if you let a property into your portfolio that is going to, not contain the right amenities, it's going to reflect negatively on your whole brand, meaning your whole portfolio's, performance and algorithms if this one property is kind of getting bad reviews or dragging you down. You don't want that. The property also needs to be well maintained, or there needs to be a willingness from the owner to complete those maintenance items and invest money back into the property.
So if we could go back in time and do things differently, we would look for those red flags and possibly turn the other direction. But going through these experiences did help us become more discerning when talking to future clients and also potential guests.
The second thing we do differently if we're just starting out as a property management company would be to not act like a bank.
And this is another lesson that actually stems back to our first client.
When we first started talking to her about property management, the property really needed some updates. It was pretty dark and it was lacking some basic amenities.
Like a place to sit down and eat a meal.
We ended up writing a proposal for all these updates and presenting that to her to really increase the marketability of this property.
We didn't think that our proposed items were extravagant by any means. These were all pretty basic things like towels and linens and a place to eat breakfast in the morning. But she was really hesitant to make the investment and instead asked if we would consider financing all of the purchases and then reimburse ourselves through future rents.
But not just that, she wanted an income guarantee first. So off the rents received, she wanted a minimum amount every month in order to be able to pay her bills or whatever. And then we were to deduct our property management fee, and any money left over would go to pay down the debt.
And no, there would not be any interest charged on us carrying the costs of the setup for her. Looking back, we're just like, why the heck did we ever agree to take this deal? Just, even saying it out loud, I'm a little bit embarrassed that we did it, but...
Yeah, it was a thing where, we were kind of excited and optimistic about...
Blinded with excitement.
Yeah. about having our first property management client. We were kind of chasing after this deal. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. Even though we were hesitant at the time, we did end up doing the deal. And long story short, not too long after we were managing the property, the owner decided to sell the house before all of our debts were paid back. And here we are, a few years later, never going to see the rest of that money.
If we ever do finance another setup like this, it would definitely be under different terms. There would be interest involved, and all of the rents would first go towards paying off the debt before paying the owner.
Honestly, we probably won't do a deal like that again unless we have super lucrative terms, just because we're not a bank and we really don't need to behave like one.
So that is something that we would go back and change if we could. But at the same time, compromising and taking that first deal, even though it was on really terrible terms, gave us that first client, which gave us the confidence to go get another client, and so on and so on.
The next thing we do differently is that we would realize and charge accordingly for the value we impart into a house when we do a whole home setup.
If you're new to our channel, a big facet of our property management company is what we call curation services, which are essentially a whole home full service setup, transforming a house into a top performing vacation rental. So this is everything from, a design plan down to furniture assembly to, putting the last knife and fork in the drawer.
And in the beginning, we really didn't know what to charge for this service. We did the first one for basically free. The rationale that we had was that if we did the setup, then we would have recurring monthly income from the property management fees.
But at the end, it felt like we really should have charged something because it was a lot of our time.
The next time we charged a couple $1,000s, and this time we also kept track of all the hours that we spent. And when we broke that down into an hourly rate, it was a pretty sad hourly rate.
So the time after that, when it came time to the client saying, okay, what are you going to charge for this setup? I decided just kind of on a whim to double the price that we had charged previously. And she was like, okay, that sounds like about what I thought it was going to be. And I was shocked, but glad that I said it.
And since then, we've doubled the price again, sometimes more than that, depending on how involved a setup is going to be. Over the past few years, we've had a few clients sell their house, and when it came time to sell, they would basically have a P&L sheet for the performance as a vacation rental at the house next to their standard real estate brochure.
So even though this was a residential sale, it was being treated like the sale of a business, and a very profitable business, and one that we had done the entire setup of and managed and
imparted the value
yeah.
into that business, to be honest.
And these homes were selling for huge profits, sometimes within less than a year of when we had set them up. And then we were just feeling a little bit left out in the cold.
Yeah, there really was no time for us to feel like we'd recovered, any value from the property management rents because the time was so short. So now we're toying with the idea that for any future home setups, that we would do that in exchange for an ownership percentage of the property. And really, this is just for us to feel like we get a return for the sweat equity of setting the house up.
So looking back over the past few years, our outlook on what we should be charging for whole home setups has drastically changed from the beginning, but that also just makes sense from a growth perspective. I feel like with experience, you're always going to be able to charge a little bit more because you're not just paying us for our time, you're paying us for all of our knowledge and all of our experience. And in the beginning, I don't think anyone would have agreed to pay us, a really high setup fee when it was the first time that we had done that for any client.
Yeah. The fourth thing that we do differently, and this isn't just if we were property managers, just hosts in general, is that we would set up systems early.
We've touched on this before, but we really wish that we would have laid a stronger foundation for growth when we just had, 1, 2, 3 properties instead of trying to implement these systems across a portfolio of 30 properties.
Yeah, so even if you don't plan to manage properties for others and you just plan to develop a portfolio of your own, spend a little time, do the research, to decide what systems you want to implement and do that at an early time for things like accounting, cleaning, scheduling, and pricing. Also, don't forget about tax strategy.
We are going to be switching up our tech stack a little bit in 2023. So if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to do that so that you can stay in the loop on all of the apps and systems that we're going to be using in the new year to really streamline and optimize our vacation rental business.
And if you're interested in learning more about a property management experience, check out this video that we'll link here on the screen.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye, guys.